Hello, and welcome to another in UCA's series of Coronavirus Initiative. My name is Bob LeVine. I am the founder and CEO of the University Consultants of America. Tonight we want to talk a little bit about the balance and influence between school and home, specifically understanding the type of students that are accepted into America's best schools and understanding how to get them there. I'm often asked, how did you get into Harvard? And for years, I really didn't know. I had no perfect answer to that. So I offer up my resume. I was a competitive swimmer. I did that for 13 years. When I was 14, for example, I held every record in 5 states except for backstroke. I didn't like swimming backstroke. I had to, but it wasn't my favorite. I was also a varsity track athlete in high school, editor-in-chief of the yearbook, and a newspaper columnist, as well as photographer. I had my own darkroom, taught myself electric guitar, was a 3-year architecture student, was on the student council as a vice president, as well as a coalition officer, and I helped start a family business. They ask, what was your SAT score? Now, before I tell you, I want you to understand a few things. First, my counselor told me to retake it, but that was in the days that people didn't really retake it. And when I said, I'm not retaking it, he said, okay. Second, there's been a bit of grade inflation since then, but I want you to understand this. My SAT score, which got me into Harvard, was 1370 out of 1600. It was not perfect. My grades weren't perfect either. I was in the top 10% of my class, barely. So here we understand that somebody without high numbers found his way into Harvard. And I still didn't know why. And I thought back to earlier in my life, and I remembered a few things. I remembered how I'd been the king of a May Fete summer fair when I was in kindergarten. How that happened, no idea. I remember how in 8th grade they nominated me as most likely to succeed. No idea. And I specifically remember 2nd grade when our teacher, Miss Nelson, said, we're going to have an election for class president. And my hand shot up. And I became class president in 2nd grade. But I never understood why I put my hand in the air, because the truth is, I didn't even know what a president of a class was, much less know what the job was. But I was going to try. I was going to do it. So a few years ago, I asked my parents. I said, look, in 2nd grade, I raised my hand when Ms. Nelson said, let's have a class president. I have no idea how that happened. Can you explain to me what you did to get me to do this? And they said, oh, that's easy. You saw what we were doing. My mother sat on the end of the bed and started to tell me about the things she had done, about how she was the president of my nursery school, how she was the head of the Temple Sisterhood, 2 or 3 other things. And my father had always been the head of the local Harvard Club and having people over for his business, Procter & Gamble, and doing all these things. The reason I didn't understand why my hand went up is because I didn't think there was another option. This is just what we did. Up we went. I mentioned that to our vice president, Bill Watson-Canning. Actually, he's our president now. Congratulations. And Bill had a very interesting and similar story. Here's what Bill said, and I'll synopsize it for you. When he was young in 3rd grade, he showed up early to Sunday school, and they were having a play that day, and they needed somebody to play Moses. How many 3rd graders get to play Moses? But Bill said, sure, I'll do it. And after that, somebody saw him, and the playwright at the church liked enough that he kind of wrote a short role for Bill, who was in 3rd grade. And as Bill says, that might be considered luck, but it really wasn't. His parents were very theatrically and vocally active. They just did things in the humanities. And it got so bad that his mom would just always be in the hallways at school, and he dreaded that. But he just naturally did this because his family did this. And now, as a father, Bill is sharing this with his daughter, and she too is following in his footsteps. Truth is, that's not the only way it happens. I'm going to share with you another story. This is Hermé. Hermé is our Vice President of Client Relations. Now, Hermé went to Yale, and then he went to UC Berkeley for a Haas Business Certificate. Then he went to Harvard for grad school. Got a pretty impressive resume. What he did not have was an impressive support structure. His parents never went to school. They never went to college. He's from Puerto Rico. They didn't even know he applied to college. And they didn't have a lot of money, and they certainly didn't have any experience to say, well, this is how you do it, son. He had no idea. But he did learn from them. Hermé learned work ethic. Hermé learned motivation. Hermé learned humility from his parents. Truth be told, his SAT score was slightly lower than mine. Bill's slightly higher. But it's not always about SAT score. It's about motivation. See, the students who get in, the one attribute of the students who get into the best schools in America, in the world, frankly, they do things. They naturally are doers. They're not told what to do. They just do. So I want to show you a quote from one of our students in Indonesia, actually, Patrick. We went back to his school, and Patrick was at Stanford. And I said, hey, Patrick, can you share some words of wisdom to the students still at your high school in Jakarta? This is what Patrick said, and I typed it up. This was a recording. He said, for all of you back there, I really hope that none of you are being pressured by your parents to do certain activities. It really should be for you. Do anything you like, but just do it the best you can. Everyone here at Stanford, none of them are forced to do their activities. They really have a genuine passion for it. And I want all of you to do that as well with your activities. So here's what we've seen. I've worked with 1,000 students, even more. Bill's worked with students, Hermé's worked with students. We've had our own successful college careers in Ivy League schools. And students have had successful careers in all the schools. Those who are self-motivated, those who self-initiate, those are the ones who get into America's best schools. No doubt in our minds. You can look at their grades, you can look at their test scores, you can look at their resumes, but when the person grows organically, the resume just builds organically. You don't look, what should I put on my resume? You just do. I was in Seoul, Korea with a cohort. Eric was driving me back to the airport. Eric's a great guy. And his company does a great job helping students find their direction with their projects and their summer programs. And they do it in a way that's different than what we do. And they do an excellent job. I said, Eric, I agree with you. But here's what I noticed. The only people who tend to take our suggestions are the ones who are just doing things anyway. And Eric looked at me and said, that's exactly right. So the question becomes not what is on your resume, but how do we get people to do the things? How do we develop the kind of student that our best universities are seeking? Well, it starts by understanding a few things. There are different environments that influence students. School is actually a middling environment. It provides the lowest common denominator, the threshold, what our society thinks everybody should have. It supports success, but it's not really designed for that. In athletics and other endeavors, there are coaches, there are teachers who play the role of role model and can be tremendous role models to help students figure out how to be great. But quantitatively and qualitatively, more time is spent at home and better time is spent at home than outside. Even if you take the sleep out, there is a huge influence coming out of home. Okay, so recognizing that parents will influence their students. The question becomes, what works? Or alternatively, the question becomes, does it work? In America, we have a concept known as the helicopter parent. In Asia, they call it the tiger mom. If you have to pull your student by the nose to get things done, they're not going to achieve these things, at least not at this age. No, instead, what you want to do, if you want them to be an adult and act like an adult, is to treat them like an adult. Now, if your child is anything like my daughter was, she probably or he probably doesn't listen very well. But that's okay. If you find in your household that over a decade of communication is starting to fail, either you're not saying it right, or they're not hearing it right, recognize that the talking isn't working. Recognize that you're just creating conflict. You're not necessarily getting them from here to there. Okay? So if talking doesn't work, stop talking. Don't create conflict. I am not saying stop educating. I am not saying stop showing them what to do. In fact, what I am saying is show them what to do. Don't tell them what to do. Become a role model. Don't be a parent. Be a happy, healthy adult. Take your life back. Do the things that make you strong. They will see that. They will naturally copy that. Becoming a role model and a support system can be hard. Letting go can be hard. But I want to give you some comfort, because the first thing parents may think is, oh no, maybe the grades will fall. Whatever will happen then. Strangely, for America's best schools and most of schools, that's not a problem. Understand, higher is better. As a professional, as an adult, kids, get good grades, get high test scores. But parents, do not fear that they fall. Certainly don't want them to fall all the way downstairs. But to the extent that they had a trip, you have the opportunity, if they trip while they're still in high school in your home, you have the opportunity to pick them up, to teach them a lesson, to help them overcome the challenge. And notice that's a lot of what America's schools are asking about. Essay prompts are always, tell us about a challenge and how you overcame it. In fact, the schools worry about students who've never had a challenge because they will be challenged in college. That's the idea. You want to be challenged in college, but what happens if you've never run into it? You do not want to see what happens when the first grade challenges happen when your kids are away from home. Really bad things happen. And there's nobody there to help them, really. There are no ways to do lessons. So number one, you're actually giving them an opportunity, or giving yourself an opportunity to be a better parent by giving them the opportunity to trip while they're at home. And understand the universities like that because it shows the ability to overcome a hurdle when the challenge arises, and the schools are going to offer the challenge. It is a concept known as grit, G-R-I-T, grit. Look it up. Google college admissions grit. You will see pages of responses about why grit is so important in the college admissions process. If you don't believe that, believe this. Human nature. Humans tend to prefer imperfections more than perfections. We prefer asymmetry over perfect symmetry. We do not want everything to be perfect. In fact, the best stories of all are the things we did wrong and what we learned from them. And if you notice, famous actors or actresses are supermodels and they mirror their face so that they look exactly symmetrical, it doesn't look as good. How many actors have you seen do this? Or their faces are just a little off. It makes them more compelling, and it makes your student more compelling too. Remember, this is not just about getting a high school resume. This is about life success. And the universities are looking for those who can succeed in the most offbeat, asymmetrical, challenging moment one can ever have. So please worry less about it. Become a role model. But there's something else you can do. It's a concept known as nonviolent communication. You see, the hearing and the speaking doesn't always work. There's conflict. Whether it's in marriage counseling or in parenting, what we call violent communication means you're attacking the other person, at least from the other person's perspective. When you say, you need to do this, it feels like an attack. Try to take the word you out of the vocabulary when talking to your child. Instead, think in terms of, I would like to see this. It's the same kind of message, but it doesn't create a command to the other person. Try not to make the commands because you're going to get it right back. Get rid of you, switch it to I. Avoid talking in ways that your recently pubescent student, teenager, will simply not understand. So going full circle, what the universities are looking for are people who do things, and that may mean adjusting what happens at home. Because here's the thing, they're different at age 15 than they were at age 5, and they're different in grade 9 than they will be in grade 10, 11, and 12. Trust me, the boys especially change. So what I'd like to do is give you a bit of a roadmap on what to do in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now, certainly, if you have students who are younger than that, as they mature and as you feel comfortable, start to make them the leader of their own lives. But here we have what we at UCA recommend for grade 9. In grade 9, get the students to focus on their grades and extracurricular activities. In other words, high school just began. It's totally different. Your job is to stay in the superior role and make them focus on less, not more. Try to simplify it. There's an adjustment. Try not to use the violent communication, use the non-violent communication, or NVC. And very importantly, as you speak to your students, teach them how to ask for help. If we have to chase a child, it's not good. But when the child comes to us, that's dangerous. And they need to understand that only the student will understand when things are starting to get a little bit or a lot off. Teachers won't be paying attention or won't know their capacities, and they're not going to tell the parents until the grades come out, sometimes not even then. The students know when something's going wrong. They should first be responsible to themselves and pay attention when something is going wrong, and then do something about it. But the difference between youth and adults is that adults know to ask for help, and the kids think they're perfect or need to be perfect, but nobody's perfect. Show them it's okay to ask for help. We're never upset when students ask for help. In grade 10, there is a lot of the same. For the students, grades and extracurricular is important, but we also want them to start to take control of their life and switch the roles just a bit. We want the parents to kind of slip back and the students to move forward. Even in grade 9, you might tell them, look, I'm still going to be on you, but it's going to change. I want to expect more out of you and push you less. We want the students to learn that now is the time to take charge of their life in grade 10. We want them, when they're doing their extracurriculars, to expand the depth and breadth of those activities. Now, that's something that a good consultant, UCA, can help you with. You need to know how the universities are grading and what their grading scales are, but essentially do more in whatever it is you do. Not more things, more depth, more breadth in the things they already enjoy. Parents should shift from trying just to be the instructor, being a role model, allow the students more freedom, and understand that there is actually value in failure and learning grit. Remember, the great scientist Thomas Edison used to be very happy when experiments did not work because it brought him closer to the answer. In fact, it is often said, if you fail, you're not starting over, you're starting over with experience. But grade 10 is essentially more of the same with a shift. In grade 11, students have a focus on 4 things: grades, extracurricular activities, testing like SAT and ACT, And be nice to the teachers. Most of America's best universities want recommendation letters. Teachers don't know you, not going to be great recommendation letters. The best recommendations are the most personal. So try to get your kids to understand that not only are you not the enemy because you've been paying for everything and clothing them and feeding them their entire lives, probably driving them. The teachers aren't either. They don't make that much money. They devote themselves to training the next generation. Most of them look at it like this in class. Just reach out to them. It'll be the best day of their lives if somebody actually cares, and they will help. And in grade 12, as the admission season begins, let's start by having a family meeting and sitting down and discuss everybody's goals and everybody's roles in this process. There are some things parents can do, there's some things parents should not do, and there's some things that the students should do. Talk about it in advance so that you're not chasing them at night, acting upset, angry, and like you need an exorcism. That does not work. Conflict does not lead to the best possible results in the college admissions effort. Students also need to learn to give priority to their college applications. Yes, grades are important, but the grades won't even be out until the applications are already filed. Basically, if they do well through grade 11, good. I'm not saying tank grade 12. I am saying don't let grade 12 distract from great application work, because your college is your future and your high school is your past. Do not get sucked up in the vortex. That's what I call 12th grade International Baccalaureate, by the way. The vortex, where you get distracted from your work. It doesn't matter what you've done. If you haven't made a good presentation, it's not going to be fun. Parents, do try to be supportive. Do not act superior. And please, offer suggestions. Make some adjustments. Do a little editing. Do not write the work for the students. This does not work. Because if you sound like, in this case, a 58-year-old man, well, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't resonate right. And you didn't live those moments in your child's life so that you will have all the detail. Please allow them to be them. Strangely, it is the most genuine, authentic, and even rough writing that totally works in college admissions. So, I'd like to end with the following. Parents have a tremendous role in this process. It seems over the years that with the advent of more aggressive programs, the AP, the IB, the UK stuff, honors, taking classes at local colleges, it feels like we are offloading the education portion of parenting. We should not. Parent, schools, coaches, teachers, outside, tutors, all of these are part of your child's team, your student's team. You are the greatest influence of all. So what I want you to take away is this. We need them to ride the bicycle without the training wheels. We need you to take the training wheels off. We need them to pedal. Same with college admissions. We need them to be them and to do the things that the universities want to see. You cannot just take a checklist and find your path into Stanford or Harvard or MIT or any of America's top 50 schools. It doesn't work. It is not like the rest of the world where grades and test scores are, that's it. It's a totally different system. It's a system designed to look at the student's contribution to the rest of the group, not just qualifications. And it's those original things they do, those extra effort things, things with passion, they just do, that catapults them into the best possible educational environment, post-secondary. So that's our show for tonight from Studio B of University Consultants of America in Tampa, Florida during the pandemic. I'm Bob LeVine. I hope that helped you quite a bit. If we can do more for you, please do not hesitate to send us an email, info@universitycoa.com. Glad to help you. And if we can work with your child to get the best possible results for their life, as well as your entire family, and even communities and even nations benefit from the success of young people. That's why we do what we do, because I'm too old to change the world, but your students are not. We just want to help. And I hope tonight's talk has helped. So signing off again from Studio B during the pandemic, Bob says, be well, be safe, be sane, stay focused. We wish everybody the best. Thanks a lot.